The person who should be applauded is the president who did the most selfless thing that anybody's done since George Washington. And that's true. And so all the machinations that got us there, that's all, none of that's going to be remembered. And it shouldn't be. What should be remembered is the selfless act of someone who, it's very hard to let go of power. We know that. We've seen it, all around the world. And for someone to say, I think there's a better way forward, that's all the credit goes to him.
George Clooney praising President Joe Biden for stepping down as the Democratic presidential candidate to make way for Kamala Harris.
And you heard it, Clooney describing the move as, quote, the most selfless thing a president has done since George Washington. Bring in Melanie Collette. She is the former vice chair of the New Jersey Federation of Republican Women, and John Reed is a radio host and conservative commentator. Thank you both for coming on. I do appreciate that. John, let me start with you on this one here. So the actor addressing the impact of his July op-ed in the New York Times of the presidential race titled, I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee. Do you remember that? So is he calling Biden the most selfless president since George Washington because he did what Clooney wanted him to do? John, how did you read that?
He's just excited that he got his way, as a lot of people are. I mean, since we're talking about an actor, we'll just pretend that the clip you played was a serious comment from a serious person. There are a lot of differences between George Washington and Joe Biden. George Washington was widely popular. George Washington had won a war. George Washington didn't have dementia, and the people around George Washington weren't mounting a coup led by a crazy lady from San Francisco to get rid of it. So, I mean, there are big differences, and to pretend that there was something noble about what Joe Biden did and it wasn't an internal coup is crazy and revisionist, and it's kind of embarrassing that he'd be overseas saying this kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, and revisionist, that stands out to me because we were covering every single day when the hit pieces dropped. I'm sorry, but when you've got celebrities and other politicians calling for the Democratic nominee, the presumptive one at the time, Joe Biden, to step aside, I mean, they weren't looking at him, Melanie, with adoration and honor and respect. It was a warning, a stern one from some of these folks. At least they seem happy with how it all played out today.
That's exactly right. And there was nothing selfless about this at all. You were dodging an epic L that you were about to take in November, and all the polls said it overwhelmingly. You were protecting your legacy, probably also trying to protect your son. There was no, and you had to be forced out, to your earlier point, you had to be forced out by the more powerful people in your party overwhelmingly. So there was nothing selfless about that. He didn't volunteer. He didn't fall on any kind of sword. So let's not revise history, as you spoke about early, and pretend that this was something that it wasn't. He was forced out. He did not leave gracefully or bow out gracefully in any way, shape, or form. And he did so to protect himself and to protect the power of the Democrat Party. No other reason than that.
It is a machine. John, I'll go to you on this. Let's move to the debate. We are about 8 days away from the first presidential debate now between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Next one up. But Tulsi Gabbard spoke out. She just endorsed Trump last week. She spoke about the debate, and she highlighted this to not underestimate Kamala Harris. Watch.
I think Kamala Harris has a lot of experience. She is not to be underestimated. President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have very different records. This is a unique situation where we have two candidates who have served at the highest offices in the land. If I can be helpful to President Trump in any way, it really is just in sharing the experience that I had with her on that debate stage in 2020, and frankly, helping to point out some ways that Kamala Harris has already shown that she is trying to move away from her record, move away from her positions, and how that contradicts the positions and statements that she is making now that she is the Democratic nominee.
So the former Congresswoman says, do not underestimate Kamala Harris. Somewhat of advice to Trump. Trump obviously wins on the political issues. He wins on policies. What would a strategy from Kamala Harris look like on the stage in your mind, John?
I'm sure the last few days she's been cramming like a high schooler for a final exam, trying to learn some zingers so that she can take on Donald Trump. I mean, the truth is we shouldn't underestimate the national media and how they will spin this as a win, assuming she doesn't make a big mistake. But she is likely to make a big mistake. I mean, she's really not very good at this. And as somebody who worked in the U.S. Senate as a senior comms guy for years and was around a lot of these people, even people I didn't like very much, I'm kind of shocked at how bad she is as a former AG, former U.S. Senator, now 4 years as VP. But she'll be able to regurgitate something. I do think President Trump needs to be careful that he doesn't taunt her into a case where she gets that magic moment like she did with Mike Pence, where she says, I'm speaking, and she gets to lecture him because of his bad behavior. Then that will eclipse all of the obvious failures of the Biden-Harris administration. So I think he's got to watch that. But I'm not looking for much from her, and I think that's the whole point. The expectations will be pretty low.
Yeah, she managed to make it through the CNN interview, although I thought it was odd that she didn't appear to have an answer to her day one plans. I mean, no specific executive order that she would sign off on to take an immediate impact. She's talking more broadly. We got to help out the middle class. That could take years. Let's take a look at some of the polls about where things stand. We've got an Ipsos ABC News poll. It shows this. Kamala Harris is ahead 52% to Donald Trump's 46% with likely voters. And then we've got this poll of all adults showing Harris with the lead here, 50%, Trump trailing at 46%. Polls across the board are mixed, but Melanie, this is incredibly close. So how does Donald Trump come across at the debate if he wants to really take the lead in some of these polls ahead of the November election?
I think, everyone who has a pulse is saying who wants Trump to win is saying to stick to policy. I think the debate is going to come down to style because, Trump is known as this brash, very strong character, if you will, as far as his personality is concerned. And because she is so weak and a girl, I think that is relevant. I think that he has to be very careful not appearing to be a bully as he demolishes her. It is a tightrope to me on Trump's part, like I said, because she really is so weak on policy and weak on her communication skills, and because he is very strong in both of those areas, and because she's a woman and him being a man, it could look like he is bullying her. So he has to shove her into her lane, crush her in the debate as far as policy is concerned, but try to do it in such a way that he doesn't appear to be a bully. And I think that is difficult because there already is this thing where he's not likable because he's viewed as a bully. So I think that's the tough part for 45.
8 days away and counting. Melanie, Collette joining us, and John Reed here on this Labor Day. Thank you both. We appreciate that.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.